Hello YouTube, this is Shirley426 and today we have something interesting to review. This is something, if you search this on AliExpress, you'll have to type in White Knight. But this is a unlicensed product, which I am sadly to say, and which gave me a long time hesitation whether to purchase it or not. And even after purchase, I was very hesitant whether to review this or not. But as something I grew up with, as a childhood toy, I felt like this one does require, can get a little bit more extra attention in my own opinion. So for those who don't know, like the original Bomberman series, now other than the game, which was all about being in a maze and exploding bombs to defeat your opponent, based on that IP there were actually a few other cartoons or animations that were made that have an entirely different situation. So they only used the design of that character, but they had this whole thing, I think this is where b-daman term originated, or where it started. Now, as someone in Korea, these terms were very different until the typical b-daman we know came out. We used a different term. So I was, as a kid who grew up and then later saw what b-daman became, I was very confused. Alright, so this is basically I'm not exactly sure what the exact name in English was, but basically in Korean it was called 구슬동자, which was about like marble warriors or something like that if you translate it directly or something like that. But once again, there were the Bomberman style characters living in a city and defeating enemies using these robots. Now there were two versions of this series as well. One, there were like typical mechs where they would actually go into the mech and pilot it, and the other series, which was that had ended, was the term Victory, where it's the same looking characters, but they're actually different characters after some research, which they become the head of the robots and then fight the enemies. Alright, so for this one, it's called White Knight, but this is actually based on the main character usage from the first, the first series of the, or the first early stages of the series, called Speed, Speed White, or I think in Japanese they call it Speed Whiter or something like that. But yeah, it's called Speed White. This is basically one of the original designs at the time, and even the original toy was a model kit. But this other company called something Power decided to make an updated version, a full-fledged model kit that has internal frames and everything. So once again, it was very difficult for me to pass on this, because I was actually, about a few years ago, I was trying to actually hunt down the original toys and to review them. Problem is, in Korea, everybody knows the value of these old toys, so they were asking for like a fortune, which I am not gonna spend. And then there was a alternative, but every time I tried to get this alternative version, it would either cancel my order or just say, oh, seems like they never existed. So yeah. Alright, so let's see what we got. So here is the box. The box is pretty big, roughly about a master grade size box. So yeah. So once again, it's called White Knight. If you type in White Knight in AliExpress, you should be able to find one of these things. Let me just lower the camera just a little bit, and then yeah. But the original name of this toy or character is called Speed White. So later, White Knight becomes Laser White becomes later Crisp White, which becomes like Union Great. Basically a combined mech of like the white one, the green one, the blue one, and the black one. So yeah, I'm not sure how this series was well known or was aware in the US or European countries, but I know this was pretty big in Japan and in Korea for some time before the whole b-daman thing came out, where kids are literally human kids, like bringing out these toy looking things that look like these and then fighting each other, shooting marbles. Before that, this was the real deal, where these were actual mechs. Alright, so before we get into the review, let's go over the components. So because you get some interesting stuff, which I think if you know what the series is, you're gonna really appreciate. So first of all, obviously, if you follow the manual, you should be able to finish building Speed White here. Really loving the design here, although the articulation is slightly tricky, especially on the feet here. But once again, as someone who grew up with the toy, who built the toy as a kid, because the original toy was also a model kit, and it was full of stickers, but this one, there is no stickers used here. Everything here is all part separated, so which is why I was very happy and appreciating the overall thing. Now here we have the character. They actually give you not a figure. This is also something you build. The main character that actually uses this unit. So in Korean we would call this guy White Bong, but what's White Bong, or like because his color is white, and then you have a orb, which is another term in Korean. So yeah, so every character you see, if there was a blue guy, his name would be Blue Bong, green would be Green Bong, black would be Black Bong, red be Red Bong, something like that. So this is the kind of like the main character, the leader of the team, kind of in a way. So yeah, this is the main character, and whenever he meets an enemy, he would transform into, he would armor up like this. This is the armor up, and when they bring out their mechs, now this is where it gets interesting. He would now transform into the head here, and then combine with his, with the main body. Now the main body here, actually, when it's not in mech mode, they will always be in these hovercraft or like transportation modes as well. So when they transform into the main body, and then they would become the heads. Even the original toy had that gimmick where you would like push up, it would be much smaller. So you would be much smaller. You have the helmet. You would push up the body, and then spread the legs to the side, and then basically try to make it into the head. Because if you take off the helmet, then on the top of the helmet you would see the mech's actual eyes here. So it had some interesting gimmicks here, but once again, in this case you don't need to do that. But they do give you an armored up version here, so which is pretty cool. So it's not a matter of like you slap on the you build two of these and then slap on the armor. This actually has some separate other builds going on here. So pretty cool if you ask me. And these things do have articulation here, so you can move the arms up forward and backward a little bit, and then you do have a little bit of a ball joint to wiggle here on the legs here. And because this is on a peg, you can rotate the feet if you want to do so. Same goes for this guy, but once again the arms have a little bit more. It's a little bit limited because of the armor here, but you can see every part you see here, the blue, the white, everything is part separated. Now for the faceplate here is a faceplate. You get two sets of faceplates, each set going on a different one. So you can see the square pegs here goes on to the non-armored version, and then the one that looks like these actually goes on to the armored up version. So you can see based on these two things, you can see the one that goes on to the armor one, the eyes are much more lower because of the helmet aspect going on here. So yeah, you get a few facial expressions going on here. So make sure that you're using the right one as well. So once again, pretty cool. And then oh yeah, so be careful, but that was also a ball joint as well. And then you do have a little bit extra articulation here, and then a little bit of a pivot joint onto the feet as well. So the company who built this, yeah, it's not about just making a quick few bucks, but I can definitely tell the guy who designed this, they definitely had some passion for this series as well, which also I've never seen this, but someone told me that another person who I know also saw this, but he didn't pre-order, but he also saw information where they mentioned that they're going to release 2 more units. So he did show me a slight silhouette, and I think there's a good chance that one is going to be the green one, which transforms into a tank, and then the other one I am not too sure because the silhouette was very vague. But it's I think it's either going to be the yellow one, which was called Cargo Jader or something like that, and then or the black one, which is like basically the opposite of this guy. Not exactly almost the same, like similar strengths as the main character, but more badass character. But yeah. So once again, if they do release those, I'm actually going to be pretty interested. Now keep in mind, this is the first like unit, so this thing has nothing to do with the whole combining mech form. So yeah, if we want to go there, we have to go 2 more stages in terms of his form. So yeah. Alright, so we've seen that, and then other stuff that you should be getting is a bag of marbles. I feel like these so originally in the toys they would be blue and much more larger, but they're not much more smaller now. And then because I guess they wanted to avoid being copyrighted or something, they just give you these typical marbles with these classic designs inside here. I would prefer if these were just blue, but oh well. You get 5 of them, and one is already inside the mech here. So, and yes, if you're wondering, you can actually fire them like the original toy. Granted, not the best firepower, but once again, it's a nice reference as well. Now, this is a leftover, not a leftover piece, but this is the piece that is used in the hovercraft / vehicle mode. Apparently, sadly, this one you have to just separate. Now, I believe back in the old original toy, they actually did implement this. This would be like either a flat piece or something like that, so it would be folded upwards, and then you would fold it all the way down, so it would be much more of a smaller piece. So once again, I guess they did their best. And yes, you get stickers, which is only for the eyes and the head camera, but keep in mind everything is part separated, and everything is already using clear, as you can see, clear blue eyes, and I believe on the back also clear camera. So I felt like that was also a waste of you know, potential. So I decided not to use these stickers as well. Now, and this is a more of a nice reference. This is the card that the character holds up before he transforms into the armor mode. So I was very surprised and happy to see this, because I don't think even the past toys ever included these. So in the cartoon, they would like hold this up and then transform into this armor mode. And later in the series, this would become, this is the base card, and then later becomes there's BC, meaning for b-daman, so that's it. And then later the main character becomes more stronger and more experienced. He gets a silver card, and then later in the series it becomes a gold card, and their transformation sequence looks even more cooler. So yeah, one side is like prismatic, the other one is just a bland piece. Alright, and now finally we have the leftover parts. Now most of these leftover parts are from usually the like doubles or double usage and such. So yep, that's most of the case. Some parts I have hard to tell which one is which, because there are like too many doubles. This is from either the helmet or the head or the mech. And then this one we have this leftover piece. Now this may feel like rubber, but no, there's no poly caps used. They're all like solid gray parts. So once again, we have a leftover joint there. This is, I believe, actually not exactly a leftover piece, but this piece is actually used in the in the vehicle mode, so which I will demonstrate later. And then here we have more leftover parts by repeats going on here and there. And then for some reason, this was never mentioned in any of the promo or even the product page when I was pre-ordering it, but apparently you get some clear blue pieces here that can be used in certain areas, which I decided not to, because once again, clear plastic, not the best deal, but once again, these do feel a little more solid. And if you want to have a clear blue marble blaster, you can technically do that as well. So yeah. But once again, if I'm ever given like those type of bonus pieces, I tend not to use them, because I just wanted to have the original thing. Alright, so sorry for the long intro, but this thing required a lot of explanations on what this thing is, because I assume most people don't remember or don't know this. Alright, now before we go into the articulation, here is a quick size comparison with a typical 1:1 44 scale HD Gunpla. You can definitely tell the height wise it's kind of similar, but once again, in terms of mass and bulk, this thing is much more bulkier as well. Now keep in mind the build is more like a master grade, but I wouldn't say it's like fully master grade, because there is an interframe, but not as much as you think. So maybe between an HG and a master grade, so in terms of build level. So once again, and also I would not recommend this for anybody, to those who have never touched or built a model kit as well, because there are some parts that where you need to make the right judgment and sand down or cut off, because it would just not fit. And there are certain pieces where I would not recommend for first timers as well, which I'll get into, especially the hands, which is very unexpected. Alright, now let's see what we got here. So once again, here we have the head going on here. Oops, sorry about that. So here we have the head. Definitely loving the head design here. I'm really glad that they did implement the whole separate head design instead of using the old style toy here. So once again, it's connected as a ball joint, but once again, the heads are technically big. So you can see it can go 360, but only at a certain angle. You can definitely tell it's going to be very easy to collide with these back binders here as well. So the head can go down that much and up not so much, because overall design. But keep in mind, these toys were not really meant to be very super articulated, especially the head, because even the old toy, the way how it worked, it was just on a single peg. So movement, not so much in terms of the head. Now for the arms, once again, utilizing any of the more modern technology, we have a little bit of extra butterfly joint going on here. And once again, this is one of those cases where the shoulder armor is a separate piece to the arm itself. So the shoulder armor is not connected to the arm, but it's its own separate thing here. So which means going to the side 90 degrees is possible, and then going, as you can see, moving up and down is possible, and then 360 twist on the arm itself is possible as well. Oops. Yeah, make sure you're rotating in the right way so that you don't break or twist anything that doesn't need to be twisted as well. And then right here, now the original toy, this black piece would have been a sticker. This is a color separated pieces, which is amazing. And then bend wise, you also get a pretty decent amount of bend. Back then this would be a ball jointed wrist, which only moves about 90 degrees, so pretty well done if you ask me. And then now here, let's talk about the hands. So once again, it is technically on a peg, so you can go 360. Actually, let me just pull it out. So yeah, this is the type of peg that you're using. As you can see, it has its own wrist joint, and each finger is individually articulated. Now here's the part where I wanted to warn those who never built this. The way how you build the fingers, I have never seen a mechanism like this ever. So the way how this works, so each finger moves pretty well. So you can have each finger moves individually. You can rotate the thumb, and then you do have, you're technically supposed to have a little bit of extra spread here, but because of the design that's blocking the way, so there's no spread. So just keep that in mind. Don't try to force it. And each finger can be moved individually. And I'm not gonna do the middle finger. Almost I did that, but on the other way. So the way how you build the finger, do you see those small pegs inside here? So what you do is that you get each joint of the finger, you put it together, you align the hole, and then they give you this T-shaped peg here, a very thin T-shaped peg, which is also on the plot plates. You slide it in there into the hole, and you're supposed to cut or break off the head part, and then put this basically the remaining pegs inside there. That was a very tedious job, which I did not enjoy making the fingers. But once again, I'm glad that it only has 4 fingers, and then each finger is the same size. So I just needed to do like repeating the same thing over and over. But once again, concerning this, yeah, this is a part which I can tell some people might mess up. So yeah. But thanks to the system, like moving the hand is very easy. Making a fist is also easy, which is always a thing that I always had issues with in terms of mech toys or like model kits, where I just wanted to have a natural fist, but it would be always tricky to move the fingers. But in this case, unlike, for example, RG which had the terrible fingers, this one is solid once you actually do complete it, and no need to worry about anything popping out after building it. Alright, so now let's get the main body here. So here was the part that you can put the marble in. So once again, I feel like these are not your typical marble size, but they are, I feel like they're more on the smaller size than the ones we see. All you need to do is you just need to plug it in there and you're good to go. Now I don't really like that, orb shape going on there, so which is why I would have preferred a blue marble, a pure blue marble, but oh well. So once again, if I had to compare this with the old toy, once again, this blue and green section would have been a sticker entirely as well. But once again, well done. Even this part, the yellow and the black, would have been full sticker. But these are all color separated parts, which still amazes me to this day. Now for the main body, there's not much of an ab crunch because of the overall structure going on here. And if you had the original toy, you might have noticed that this one only comes with this blue blaster. In the series, he would actually get a much more larger red blaster, which actually connects to that pops out to the back of the body, which I assume was supposed to be a much more powerful blaster, but that thing is not included in this one. So yeah, so no rotation, no ab crunch, but once again, the original toy didn't have it, and so I think they did an okay job with this as well, or a suitable job, if you ask me. Now there is a little bit of a side skirt here that moves separately, but it barely moves, so don't try to force it. And then now let's look at the legs here. So the legs has this interesting system where you can go up and down. This one moves a little bit too much for my taste, but once again, that's that. And then you can go forward 90 degrees and backwards 90 degrees as well, and you should be able to get a spread because of the joint structure going on here. Now here is the size. So the thing is that it goes from thigh to feet, so you don't have that other middle part where a human would have. So it may feel a little bit awkward to call this a bend, but once again, that is how it works. So you do have a bend here, but not as much as you think. And then now there is a pivot joint, but I'm still having trouble figuring out how this works. So you can actually push up the feet inwards and then lock into place, but you can also pull down the feet like that, and then you do have a little bit of pivot joint, but not as much as you think. It can go outwards a lot, but not much into the inside, or depending on the angle, it may look like it can move a lot, but depending on the situation, I guess. And then you can have a nice toe bend from the front and upwards to the front as well. Alright, so now we've seen the basics of this guy. In terms of posing, pretty much it's going to be a little bit tricky because, once again, especially the legs, because there's no middle part like a human, so that is going to be a little bit awkward going on here as well. But once again, anything else like the arms, they are magnificent, and then the fact that you can fire the orb like in the past, that is a pretty cool bonus. But once again, this would depend on the person if you prefer it or not. Alright, so there is one form that's left, and keep in mind these guys don't actually hold weapons as well. So this is their main weapon, this blaster. So other than that, it's mostly physical, like punching and kicking. So which is why we don't actually get handheld weapons, which is once again a little bit odd because they give you these fingers. I would have just preferred just a typical fist like in other kits, but oh well. I guess they wanted to spice things up. All right, I'll be right back with the vehicle mode, and we'll end it off there. Okay, I'm back. So here we have the vehicle form or hovercraft form. Now, once again, I will admit this is a kind of a stretch, but when you think about it, in the series, come to think about it, the white one had the most weakest vehicle form in terms of design. The rest actually becomes like a pilot jet plane or a vehicle, like a tank, like I said. Pretty convincing designs. This one had, so the white one always had the most, you know, questionable design here. So yeah, so you can definitely tell, like, friend, oh yeah, that is a robot that's going to transform into something. You can definitely tell from that as well. So yeah, it's just basically about just putting the arms to the back like this and then calling it a day. So the best example would be like the green one. The green one actually becomes a tank. Like, you can see all the treads in the front. The gun becomes like, it would be flat on the ground with the treadmills, and then the blue one becomes actually a plane as well. This one is just like, yeah, the most simplest one going on here. So that great part I was talking about, you can basically slap it on here onto the switch. Now in this form, basically you cannot fire the marble here. But once again, you now have a seat here. Now I called it a seat, but there's nothing that actually pegs on it. It just gives you an extra space that the character can actually just you know, lean on. So it's not connected, there's no peg, but it does give you an extra boost and to hold on to the main body here. And yeah, that is pretty much it. So in this case, this also works onto the non-armor character as well. So these guys would be hovering around, and when they see the enemy, they would combine with their forms as well. And yeah, that is pretty much it for the review. Now back in the old toy, this yellow part actually did move on its own, although I did have questions on why. Because it didn't really serve any purpose in the original toy. But yeah, so yeah, that was the White Knight from this company called Power, but the actual name of this character or mech is called Speed White or Speed Whiter, depending on the Japanese version. So apparently in the Japanese, I think this was just called the b-daman series. So the name kept going on, but in Korea we called this series was the mechs something else. And later, when the later series, when it was about kids holding these marble shooting toys and fighting each other like Beyblades, that's when it became b-daman in Korea. So yeah, a little bit confusing here, but this had some very sentimental values to me. And granted these are not really fully licensed, so I can't really say to go buy them. But once again, for those who want to feel the old nostalgic feels and who is aware of the series, yeah, I do recommend it. Alright, so once again, hopefully this review was helpful, and to give you guys an idea, like I said, I do not recommend this to first timers, because there are some parts that you really need to sand down. Some parts just barely don't fit, so I had to like work on a few different aspects going on here as well. So anyway, if you guys got any questions or requests, in the comment below. I still have more stuff to buy and build and maybe reviews out, so please stay tuned. Until then, see you guys next time.